Speaking of inspiring, Senator Robinson. Can I get a hand up just to see where you are in the room? Okay, good. Thank you. We have a very special guest. I just said who that was. And coming up for a fireside chat. Senator Mary Robinson is here to discuss shaping the future of agriculture with Heather Watson from Farm Management Canada. Senator Robinson is a globally recognized leader in agriculture, the agricultural sector, and an active member in her Prince Edward Island community. She is a managing partner of the Robinson Group of Companies, a sixth-generation farm and agribusiness in Albany, Prince Edward Island. Okay, you can correct me later. Sorry, everybody. Senator Robinson has worked for over 25 years with the Robinson Group of Companies. She has also been actively involved in the agricultural sector organizations at the provincial, national, and international levels. She was president of the PEI Federation of Agriculture, the first female chair of the Canadian Agricultural Human Resources Council, and the first female president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. She retired from the role of vice president of the World Farmers Organization and member of the board for the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity in the spring of 2024. Mary also served on Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's National Food Policy Advisory Council and the PEI Regional Economic Advisory Council. She's currently a member of the University of Prince Edward Island Board of Governors and the Board of Directors of Mid-Isle Farms. Senator Robinson is a proud Prince Edward Islander whose contributions to her community have gone beyond agriculture. She maintained active roles in her local home and school association, as well as local community band and sport programs. She received the PEI's Women's Institute Outstanding Women in Agriculture Award and was named as one of the top 25 most powerful women in Atlanta, Canada by the Atlantic Business Magazine. In January 2024, the Governor-General, Her Excellency the Right Honourable Mary Simon, appointed Mary Robinson to represent Prince Edward Island in the Senate of Canada. She joined the Canadian Senators Group and plans to focus her Senate work on Canadian agriculture and rural life. Senator Robinson and Heather, please come take your seats.
Danielle did it all. We don't need to talk.
Yeah, exactly. So now you know all about Senator Robinson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks so much, Danielle. I was looking at the script this morning as well, and I was like, wow, like that's a lot to say. What are we going to talk about? But I have no doubt we have a lot to talk about. So firstly, thank you so much for being here. I know you're extremely busy. Lots is going on in Ottawa, and we recognize that. So we really do cherish our time with you, Senator. I never thought I would be sharing a stage with a senator, let alone having a fireside chat. But I know it's not about me today, it's about you. And so I'd like to kind of start by opening up with what got you interested in the Senate? Was it always a dream of yours? Is it, I want to be a senator one day? Could you tell us a little bit about how you got to be Senator Mary Robinson?
Great question. So, for me, no, I, as a child, did not dream of becoming a senator. Grew up in obviously in an agriculture family, as Danielle has already shared. My dad had the clean boots. My uncle had the dirty boots. We had agribusinesses as well as farm, and we continue to have those. And I was discouraged by my parents to come home and get involved in the business because of the stress. Where's Andrea? And the uncertainty. But nonetheless, I went to school, traveled around a bunch, was really fortunate to get to do all that. Came home in my mid to late 20s, joined the business, I was in crop protection sales and got to travel the island wide, selling Bravo and all kinds of other products we use in potato production predominantly. Then as I went through that part of my career, we bought a couple more businesses because we had people in my generation coming home, and I was then running a custom application business, which I still do kind of on the side of my desk today. I decided, got married, had a couple kids, looking around, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? And my husband and I agreed that I would get involved in ag politics. So I gave a call to the local chair of the recruiting committee for the PEI Federation of Agriculture, and I laugh when I think about this because I'm pretty sure I could hear him hitting the floor as he fell off his chair when I said, "Are you looking for anybody to get involved?" Because at that point in time, nobody was putting up their hand to say, "I want to get involved in ag politics." I think it's a lot sexier now, if we can say that. So I joined the PEI Federation Board, and within a few years, I went from being county rep to member at large to vice president to president. In there, I got to jump on the CARC bandwagon, and I think that's around the time that you and I met. Yeah, and then through CARC, I got exposure to the national stage, and the progression in PEI and the Federation is once you've completed your term as president, you become past president, you serve on the Canadian Federation of Agriculture Board as the PEI rep. So I did that, and 2 years later, Ron Bonnet had convinced me to run for president, so I became president of that. God love Ron.
Oh,
He
yeah.
lied through his teeth to me. It's so easy. You'll do it off the side of your desk. No trouble at all. I became
We've
president.
all been tricked by Ron
Oh,
once or
yeah.
twice in our life.
He's so innocent looking, but
Right.
he's
Yeah.
an evil person.
Yeah, a very powerful man.
So from there, the bottom fell out of the world. In 2019, I was elected, and then we had China shut canola and beef and pork implications as well. That was the two Michaels. I was thrown in the deep end on media interviews. We had rail strikes, rail blockades, COVID, had lots of calls from David Geen, BC, one of your big cherry producers. He was faced with his foreign workers not being able to come into the country, and CFA, we went from a job that was going to be easy off the side of my desk with lots of travel to no travel to literally, as everyone here probably experienced the same, hours and hours and hours on Zoom. And trying to convince government that we needed access to foreign workers and a whole bunch of other things. So in that journey at CFA, at one point we had a lobby day, and I looked around the room, everyone was saying, you know, the Senate just doesn't understand us. And around this time, Prime Minister Trudeau had changed the rules for how you became a senator, and there was an application process that was unveiled. So it stopped being a partisan kind of appointment. So I asked the question of the board, well, who here, of the 30 people around the room, who has applied? And not one hand went up. So I challenged them, as I challenge everyone in this room, to have a look at the Senate and to consider putting your name forward. There's no harm in applying. There's openings all the time. Who knows with the next election what's going to happen to the appointment process? There will probably be changes, as we are most likely going to see a change in government. But encourage people to have a look at it if it's something that you think you might be interested in, because the biggest deficit in my mind as far as the brain power within the Senate is an understanding and appreciation for the challenges and the opportunities in front of agriculture. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did, Senator, for sure. And
Stop calling me that. Can we go to Mary?
Mary. I was thinking about that all last night. I was so stressed because I know when we met yesterday, or 2 days ago, I said, you said, call me Mary. And I'm like, am I allowed to do that on the stage? This feels so weird. Okay, Mary. That feels better for me too, actually. I can stop sweating so much. Well, I have to say, I mean, we're so lucky to have the on-farm experience representation. Like, is it 6th generation farm that you're coming from? So to have that at the Senate, and alongside Rob Black, I know we see you guys at a lot of events together, and it's so nice because you feel like your people are there representing you, and I just think we're so lucky to have that, and so lucky to have people like yourself and Rob, stepping forward and saying, nobody's putting their hand up, but you know what, I'm going to. I don't really know maybe what I'm getting into, and as you said, it's a crazy world and things happen, but you've led us through all that, and we're excited about what's to come. So, okay, journey to the Senate. You're coming up on kind of your 1-year anniversary there. What has your journey through the last almost 12 months been like? What has that felt like? Is it what you expected? Was it kind of like a Ron Bonnet, everything's going to be fine, and then you're like, okay, we're doing this now, or is it what you expected it would be?
I don't know if I had expectations. I say with pride to my new colleagues, I used to be a lobbyist, which is kind of like admitting you were a serial killer, I thought. So, is it what I expected? So, a lot of questions people have, I find, are, well, what can you do still in your normal life, and what do you have to give up? Because we all understand conflict of interest. And there's this little part of the Senate called the Senate Ethics Office. And the Senate Ethics Officer kind of gives you advice, but nothing you can show that I asked for permission that I'm okay to do this. So you have to use your own judgment. But I think what I've decided to adopt as my personal policy on this is, so long as I'm not using my position to benefit any of my personal business or anything to do directly with me and the people that I own businesses with, if I'm not using my position to advance those ventures, then I'm okay. So, for example, I mentioned I continue to operate our custom application business, and I am a certified crop advisor. Is there any more certified crop advisors in the room? And I have my tractor trailer driver's license, which I think I'm the only senator that does, which I like to say.
Oh, we're going to hold that against Senator Black for sure.
Excellent. He does, and I checked. Yeah. But I still operate that business because we don't do anything with the federal government, right? So I don't have any opportunity to flex my big, huge senatorial powerful muscles to mean that I put more pounds of lime out the back of my Terrogator. So that's been a big part of trying to figure out how this new role fits for me. I do recognize that maybe I underestimated a lot, like the Ron Bonnet pitch, how much it does take. So a life in the week for me is, in broad strokes, the Senate sits 3 weeks of every month, except for summer and January. And of those 3 weeks, I would leave home Monday, and I would get home either late Thursday or Friday at some point in time. I typically try to go to my office on farm for at least a day, if not 2 a week, and then back to Ottawa the following Monday. So within those Monday afternoon through to Thursday night, wow, it is a fast-paced agenda. If anybody's ever gone for a lobby day in Ottawa, typically at the end of the day, you're just beat. And just think about the people you're lobbying are doing that.
That's all day, every day for you.
Yeah.
All day, every day. Yeah.
But it is incredibly cool because we get to meet so many different people. Like I've got meetings from, I think, the Mood Institute, the Port Authority, the police, the engineers, all these different meetings. And in each of them, I kind of think, okay, this is an opportunity to educate them a little bit about the agricultural element within whatever they're doing.
And I think that's the cool thing. Like we heard from Ashley talking about careers in agriculture, you can do anything. And I think anything that is being discussed, there is an agricultural angle at the end of the day, whether it's natural resources, whether it's food, whether it's health, whether it's mental health. Like agriculture connects to everything and it connects everyone. So again, it's so cool that you're there to kind of be putting your hand up and saying, what about agriculture? What about agriculture? because we were talking about some policy pieces yesterday and some bills, and I think we were talking about the greenwashing, and with Erica, and we were saying, that wasn't intended to affect agriculture, but boy, what a big effect it could have on agriculture. So maybe that leads us into our next little question about policy. I feel like I could rhyme off the alphabet and be like, okay, Bill 282, C59, whatever. Hike, I don't know. I feel like I'm calling out football right now, but there's a number of bills in the Senate right now, right? Near and dear to the ag community, whether it was intended to be or not. And so where has the Senate succeeded, and what are some of the challenges it continues to face with agriculture and ag policy? And I understand if you don't want to talk about some specific bills. I also understand if you do want to talk about specific bills. So it's entirely up to you, Mary. Take us on a journey.
I feel like yesterday, Sean Haney, before he rolled out some expletives, he said, "Is this being recorded?" So, well,
Shut the cameras down.
Lock the doors.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about successes, a huge success, I think, from the ag community's perspective has been the soil health study. And that was driven by Senator Rob Black, who I'm sure most people here know. My journey with that was kind of interesting. I was called as a witness because I was president of the CFA. And then at the very end of it, when it came to what they call clause by clause, and they're wrapping up the final report, I was a senator and sat in on the committee. So I was part of the committee when it finished that up. So that was really cool. And the soil health report or study was long overdue. And Rob, with the help of Mr. Lobb, they recognized that the last one had been done in '84. So it was a huge deep dive, 2-year report, amazing, and really important to kind of benchmark, take stock of where we are and start to again have recognition. We heard yesterday about the cost of land. Oh my gosh, if anyone from my area had to pay $80,000 or $140,000 an acre for land, can you imagine? And the pressures, the land we're losing. So I think that was really, truly a success story for agriculture. And right now, what we see in the chamber, as they say, they call, in the chamber, they call the House of Commons the other place. And they're fairly specific about that. I don't know. Yeah, my parents used to not call Donald Trump. They used to call him Shirley. So they didn't want to say his name. So I think that's kind of Shirley in Ottawa is the other place. So within the chamber right now, you're right, we've got C280, we have C282, and C275, which are all ag themed. And if we look at 280, that's the kind of the one that will give us reciprocity with the U.S. on the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act. And it's a great demonstration of how something that was incredibly well intended and would give a lot of protection to, in particular, our fruit and vegetable growers here in Canada, it kind of got hijacked and became a discussion about protecting banks, which is a pretty tough pill to swallow when you're sitting there. Yeah, so 280 right now is in the chamber. There's been some amendments proposed. It's at debate, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, from my perspective, the amendments will be voted down, and the bill in its original form will pass, and that will mean that the U.S. will grant us reciprocity. If anybody wants to know more, we can talk later. 275 is the biosecurity bill. And there was some language changed in that at committee. So what happens with any bill that comes into the chamber, it goes through first reading, second reading, and then at that point it's handed off to committee, and committee calls witnesses, they hear testimony, and then they come back to the chamber with a recommendation and potentially amendments. Or they might just say, we endorse this bill or we don't endorse this bill. So 275 came back with amendments that really changed a lot about the bill. The bill was meant to protect farms from trespassers. And it's a bill that is being sponsored by John Barlow from the foothills in Alberta. And he had a neighbor, a turkey farmer, who called him one morning and said, John, I've got 40 animal activists in my turkey barn. What do I do? So the concern was, there are a lot of concerns there, but the one that seemed to be potentially the most possible to have legislation come from was biosecurity. So the language has been changed to the point where, sitting around the table, backing up. We have about 100 senators, 106 senators when the seats are full, I think. And if you consider two of those people, Rob Black and myself, have made publicly that our main mandate is agriculture. That's a lot of minds to try to educate and to have understand the nuances of the issue. So when we look at C-275 at the Ag Committee, which Senator Black chairs, and you look at the membership, and it's just common sense how people come to the table with their biases and understanding or perspectives. And unfortunately, there kind of got to be concerns about protecting the investigative journalist in this discussion about C-275. So again, an amendment that is unfortunate. It too is at a similar stage as C-280 being debated because the recommendation was brought back to the chamber to adopt this amendment. So we'll see what happens there. But again, I hope the amendment is voted against and the bill in its original form passes and we get something that's really helps protect biosecurity on farm. And the last one that's really, really exciting is C-282. I see some dairy farmers in the room. And C-282 is, for anybody that doesn't know, is there anybody that doesn't know what 282 is? It rocks my world these days. That's pretty sad. And 282 is about supply management and making it law that it would be illegal for our trade negotiators to give up, to make any further concessions in our supply managed commodities. So obviously, for me, it's Sophie's choice because I definitely support supply management. I come from an export-focused industry. I mean, we also ship potatoes domestically, but we on our farm we're growing beans as well as barley. So we definitely export, and there's been a lot of voice in opposition as well as in support of this bill. So this bill too has come back to the Senate with a proposed amendment, and that amendment would say, I believe it's something along the lines of, we'll pass 282, but it will not apply to any of the trade deals we currently have in effect. So that is, all of these things kind of came to a head this week, and I had committed to be here. So I'm really hoping that my one vote doesn't kind of end up being the deciding factor in any of this stuff, but that's what 282 is. So I think that probably the last one we should maybe talk about a little bit is C-234, which is the greenhouse gas. What do they call it? The Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. So that one, if people remember, because I'm sure everyone follows it so closely, in December of last year, I was at COP, and Rob Black was there. I was there with the World Farmers Organization, and Rob left in a hurry to go back to Canada to be there for the vote on C-234. 234 was to give us exemptions on the cooling and heating of barns as well as grain drying. So that kind of got gutted in a bunch of ways I won't bother to get into. It got sent back to the House with amendments. Amendments were passed at the chamber. So once a bill is amended, if it's come from the House to the chamber, amended, it goes back to the House. A message goes back to the House, not with the whole bill, but with just the amendment. And then the House decides if they're going to adopt the amendment or reject the amendment. And that's the stage we're at right now. So that's all the excitement. Anybody asleep yet?
No, that is super exciting, actually. Well, and I think the fact that, you're breaking it down, because these are complex issues, complex challenges, and complex opportunities in some ways too, but the way that you break it down into, common sense, right? Like, I think that's something I personally really appreciate, because not everyone is involved in, policy and politics, and we didn't kind of get the 4-H to federations journey of okay, we get all this and we understand. So having you break that down for us and be okay, here's what's in front of us, here's the choice or lack thereof, I think it's important. And I was thinking about the biosecurity one. That's really top of mind for us. We're doing some work with the pork sector right now. And in BC, for those of you in BC, probably know it's been really difficult for the pork sector here, to the point where they're thinking, maybe we need to just not have a presence at all in terms of our communications and our website. Like, they're inundated, it's just, you know, farmers are in a survival mode, and we want everyone thriving, and to be feeling, you know, scared and ashamed of what you're doing. I know it's a longer conversation, a larger conversation, but it's so upsetting. It's so sad. So the fact that you're there, you know, speaking the truth about the matters and the effect it can have, the impact in all ways is so appreciated. So I'm probably going to say that a lot, but I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So thanks for everything. And we are going to open questions to the audience. I won't hog all of the time, I promise. So I guess, like, thinking about, you know, we've got yourself and we've got Rob, you know, two very strong voices, I would say, powerful voices. What are some things that the agriculture community, so say people in this room, could do to assist you in your work? What would that look like? I know, you know, witnesses are called or testimony is called, but what advice would you give farmers and industry and people like me to ensure that the issues that matter to them are getting the attention by the Senate, and that we're helping you have a strong voice for agriculture?
I love the helping part. I think first, as I said earlier, apply. And if you see someone in your life that you think would be a great addition to the Senate, you can nominate them too. Like you can put their name forward, and that did happen to me at one point. And so we need to definitely increase the population of agriculture people in the Senate. Beyond that, my biggest insider tip, having sat on the other side of the table as that serial killer / lobbyist, is the committee work. So as I said, after second reading, bills get sent to committee. So that's where committees get their mandate. But committees they're not always being handed work by the chamber. So when they're kind of idle, they sit as a committee and they say, what should we look at? What should we be investigating and creating awareness about? So within that, I tell everybody this, everybody from agriculture that comes to my office, think about all the committees, because I think there's like 20 committees. There's a lot of committees. There's a social affairs, science and technology, there's transportation communications, there's foreign affairs and trade, the list goes on. You can find them all on the website, and it is really interesting if you find that stuff interesting. But I encourage people to find a topic that they identify within their area of expertise, something they're concerned about. Land prices, what have we looked at? Mental health, you know, something, and to really hone your idea, thinking that your end goal is to have the Senate committee do a deep dive into that topic. And within that, then identify your committee, your chair, your clerk, and send them, lobby them. I want you to study this. And because what you're going to do by studying it, if there's 6 or 10 senators on that committee, that group is going to learn more about that topic. They're going to hear testimony from people that are experts on that topic, which is probably you and your colleagues. And you're going to bring attention and shed a light on the issue. So then maybe in the chamber, there'll be more discussion and more informed discussion. So if I kind of look at committee work as an opportunity to increase the understanding and appreciation for agriculture, and I really hope that we see more and more of that, and to get out of our agriculture silo. It's something that, you know, we get in this echo chamber and we say people don't understand us. So the challenge, I think, is how do we get people to understand us? And that's making, you know, having good relationships so that when C-280 comes to the table, a senator from downtown Toronto says, oh, well, I met Joe Blow or Jane Blow that lives in Quebec and grows fruits and vegetables. I'm going to reach out to her and get her understanding of this so that I've got some real information. Because as I said earlier, I'm meeting with engineers and mental health and the whole gamut of experts. And I don't understand all of those topics, yet I'm expected when I go into the chamber to vote on legislation that impacts all of these other industries. So I think we really need to look at those other 104 senators, and probably Rob and me too, and educate us and have better understanding.
Well, and that's really cool to, you know, to understand and to think of, that we can just like come forward. Like I'm thinking right now, okay, I'm going to go back to my room and I'm going to Google like, okay, who's on the Senate committee, and just start thinking about, I think in agriculture sometimes, we laugh a little bit about it, or we think, it's a challenge because we have so many associations in agriculture, right? So many. And so many people's time. But in this case, it could be a real advantage because we already have, groups that we're aligned with and who can lend their voice to certain issues. So knowing that that's an avenue, like we've kind of all heard of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, and now it's like, okay, and there's another avenue for that to bring attention. And like you said, even if it just gets so far as let's have a conversation about it, well, all of a sudden 104 people know more about our sector and what's happening. And so, yeah, I think that's great advice. Did you have something more to add? You look like you're...
I know I had wanted to kind of mention that, within us staying in our own silo, like yesterday, and I'm going to kill her name. I'm so sorry. I think it's Victoria Picelli. Is it Picelli? Anybody know? Anyhow, she made a great statement, and she said we should be curious about agriculture. Agriculture is interconnected to everything in Canada. So the ideal is senators should approach agriculture with curiosity, but the reality is a lot of senators come to agriculture with suspicion. And I don't think there's anyone here in agriculture that would be shocked by that. Because that whole innocent until proven guilty seems, we hear over and over, farmers are the most trusted occupation. Yet we have this sense of suspicion. And, with Bill C-275 and that concern to protect the investigative journalist, what's going on behind closed doors? And one of the senators who disagreed with that sentiment said, would you be opposed to me cracking open a window in your house and crawling into your living room window and seeing how you're treating your dog? Would you have a problem with that? And they said, that's my private property. And it was this inability to say, right, so that turkey farmer, that was his private property. This suspicion is really a concern, and I really appreciated Victoria's words on that.
No, that's an absolutely fair point. And sometimes we do have to bring it back to kind of just common sense and kind of use an analogy to kind of, because I think it spirals out of control so easily. And it's like, okay, the shoe is on the other foot now. And so say in that situation, your dog is really, really sick, has an immune compromise, whatever. So you're endangering that. Like, it's not even just, say breaking and entering, but you're endangering the health of that animal. Or if you're at the slaughter plant and the animals are stuck on a truck in 40-degree heat, like what good is that doing? Anyways, I know we could go on. I'm seeing questions come up. So let's do this. Rapid fire, Mary. Are you ready?
I'll try.
Okay. So what is your opinion on net zero carbon footprint for agriculture? And if there are any government policies in discussion to assist farmers to transition through?
Okay, so for sure, all of us live and die by climate. I'm not a climate denier. I don't think you can deny it. So where did the question go?
Second one down.
Oh, okay. C-234, I think, is a great example where, there had been initially in that legislation, there was going to be a 10-year sunset clause, and then that got reduced to 8, and now they're saying 3, and even, within that, the heating and cooling has been removed, or is it the grain drying that's been removed? They've changed it around so much. So I think... what is my opinion on net zero carbon footprint for agriculture? Well, I think we're all getting there one way or another as best we can. People are embracing technology. Technology's expensive to integrate. And as far as policies and discussion to assist with farmers to transition through, I know there have been some monies announced within the last couple of years, but I'm not, we always know it could be better, it could be more. And we also know, we woke up this morning to government saying they're going to give us a holiday on HST. So, all of us are pretty much business operators here, and we understand revenue and spending. So I think there's a challenge there. But I think more importantly, we need to ensure that there's a better appreciation for what it means to adopt new technologies and become more net zero on our carbon emissions on farm.
And I think as well, you were talking about, agriculture being in its own silo. And for me, that issue is also in terms of what's happening, domestically, but also internationally. So, like, I think that's where groups like the World Farmers Organization come in, because you can say, hey, New Zealand, like, what's happening on carbon taxing or whatever on your side, and how are you facing it, and where are you starting? And, like, I think, we can expand our silos, like not just agriculture, not just Canada, but like internationally as well. And we can kind of, oftentimes I tend to kind of look to Europe and think, okay, whatever's going on there is eventually going to come here. So, so kind of, keeping your mind a little bit open to say, okay, like what might be coming down the pipeline, so that you don't have to feel like you're facing it alone, or you're the first to face this. It's like, you can kind of rally your troops in a way and understand, different perspectives. And maybe there are some solutions already happening out there that we can adapt and adopt over here in Canada. Okay. Can you talk more about the bill to protect Canadian vegetable growers? What are the protections?
So the PACA, which is the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act in the U.S., is a deemed trust. So what it means is if you're selling fresh produce within the U.S., the receivables within a business are held in trust to make sure that if I'm a farmer, I sell a load of potatoes into Boston, my buyer becomes insolvent or just doesn't pay me for it, the load disappears. It's perishable. It's not gonna come back to me. I'm not gonna be able to redirect it somewhere else. It's on the other side of a border. It disappears. So what protection do I have? When we had reciprocity with PACA, that meant that I was protected, that the PACA trust would go in, it would take that money from the buyer, and it would make sure that I got paid as a farmer. So in 2014, after I think a decade or more of the U.S. saying, if you don't offer us PACA in your form, we're going to have to stop offering you ours. So that happened in 2014. They stopped offering it, and now this piece of legislation, Bill C-280, is very specific in its wording, and it has to remain specific in its wording, because then we will gain reciprocity. So that means that any farmers selling fresh produce into Canada will be protected by our PACA, C-280. So the protection is really to just make sure you get paid.
I mean, that sounds pretty good. I'm sure there's lots of details to be considered. Okay, is there a system level issue re-agriculture you are concerned about that isn't getting discussed?
System level issue.
I know, right? These questioners are...
Help me understand, what do you think a system level issue is?
Like, I mean, yesterday we talked about something that's not being talked about, and we talked about, we don't talk about chemicals because it's a lose-lose situation. So maybe it's, something systemic.
Anybody want to shout out what a system level issue might be?
Travis is smiling. I think he knows.
No? Okay. I don't know.
We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Okay. I like the question near the bottom. Do you have any advice on how young farmers can get more involved in ag policy work?
Massive shout out to Ashley. I loved her speech, and I want to be a meat inspector now. These questions keep moving around on me. So how can youth get involved? So I think the path through 4-H, which I didn't get to take, because in my area it was always animal producers, it wasn't croppers like us. I think it's awesome, fantastic, and I think we need to somehow create more awareness within parliamentarians about how valuable 4-H is, because I really think there's a lack of understanding there, huge lack of understanding. Honestly, I was in student council, and that might sound kind of silly, but I think that that's important, just to get a sense of what it is to be elected, to figure out what your mandate is and carry it through. As far as getting involved in ag politics, I know there's a movement afoot right now to get our young farmers of Canada kind of rejuvenated, to get that organization, get their mandate cleared up, and start to get a bit more momentum and traction there. So I think reaching out to your, like in British Columbia, the BCAC, and asking that question, asking if there's opportunity. I know the agriculture producers of Saskatchewan, they do a wonderful job. They've got a mentee program, and they bring along young people, and they take them to events like the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, AGM. And I think, for example, there are 3 people here. I think there was opportunity for, but 3 are here with Senator Rob Black's help to see a meeting like this. So I think it's just really forcing yourself in those places to find someone that's going to take you under their wing and show you the ropes.
Yeah, no, exactly, because I think every province and territory has a young farmer group, but even so, there's, you know, the general farm organizations like the Federations of Agriculture, called different things across Canada, and then commodity organizations as well. And I think, I mean, as an agricultural association, we're always looking for, you know, fresh thinking, you know, open eyes, young minds. And so we maybe don't always, you know, put our feelers out and reach out. And maybe that's a call to action for everyone else as well. So it's not just always up to the young farmers to come to us, but we need to really make an effort to reach out and embrace. And but yeah, no, I think it'd be great. And again, some national camaraderie and sharing of challenges and opportunities is not a bad thing. Awesome. Which one do you want
I
next?
think 293. It was at the top. Yeah. So 293. Oh my gosh. I think I've received about 12,000 emails about 293, as has every other senator. I'd suggest anyone sending an email to a parliamentarian, don't start off with "we the people demand." It's not really encouraging me to open the email. I think I have received about 400 of those at least. So on 293, I understand that the sponsor of the bill, who's MP Erskine Smith from Ontario, I spoke with him directly. He is friendly to amending the bill in a way that the Canadian Federation of Agriculture has suggested. So I find that encouraging. And you can see what those recommendations were made by CFA, I think, if you look on their website. But I think there's a lot of pressure on 293 to become a lot less the Vegan Act and to not be looking for us all to be getting Beyond Meat burgers forever. So I think we're going to see, I'm hoping it's going to play out in a way that we can live with.
And thanks for the team for highlighting the question that we're speaking to. That is super handy. Who knew that was possible? Where should we go next?
Number 2, how can we move beyond partisan politics to do what is best for agriculture? That's a great one. Highlighted. I think we all have a role to play in this. I think we all have a role to not tolerate sensational witch hunt kind of rhetoric. You know, right now, I'm having a security system installed in my house because that's what they tell you to do because you should stay safe. I've asked some questions that labor might consider, unions might consider unfriendly, so I have to personally take that into consideration. I have a personal panic button that I'm told I should carry with me, that when I go anywhere in the world, if I press the button, that someone's going to show up to make sure I'm okay, which is crazy. And Rob Black has a great story about accidentally pushing his button when he was at a wedding reception at a golf course, and that's a good story. You could ask him sometime. I think it was actually a 50th wedding anniversary. How can we move past partisan politics? I do think everybody has a role to play in this, and I think it's so incredibly important because whatever party is in power, I don't think they're going to give us all the answers we want. You know, the Liberal Party, I worked a long time with this government when Mary-Claude Bibeau was Minister of Agriculture to try to get things to change, and it's hard. It's really hard. I think we'll have the same kind of challenges with whoever forms government next. So I think it's incumbent upon us all to ensure that it's respectful, because my biggest concern is how are we going to attract good people? Imagine you were asked to run, to become an MP. For me, the thought process is I wouldn't put my family through that. I would not expose my children to that, my mother. So I think we all have a role.
I've literally heard that sentiment from amazing people who want to get into politics, but they're so afraid for the safety of their family, for the safety of their loved ones, and that is such a sad state of affairs.
I really think we all have to stand up when we see that and say, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's not okay. You can't tell, but Mary's tearing up right now. So I know this is very near and dear to your heart. Absolutely. Okay, we have three.
Thanks for telling everyone that, Heather.
Well, I mean, she's a real person, and when someone starts tearing up, I start tearing up, and I'm an ugly crier. So I just thought I would give you fair warning in case things go south real fast up here. Danielle, where are you? All right, we've got 3 minutes. Choice is yours. You can answer another question, or you can just tell us what's next for you, what you're excited about.
Okay, the question on green and clean technologies, I think I'll pass on because I don't think that's so much my area of expertise, speaking personally. As far as they're stuck and how do we get investors. Okay. Benchmarks, wow, great comments about data. That was another comment I wanted to make that we heard Mr. Olson say yesterday. Where did my comment go? I think the comment was, without good data comes bad policy. Is that right? Yeah. And that is, 100%. And I know on our farm, we hire custom cutters, and they have, like 10 years ago, they had yield monitors in their combines. I'm like, well, where's the data? Oh, well, we don't have a memory card in that. What? You could be getting that. We don't know what to do with it. Yeah, but why don't we collect it? And that straight across the board for everything we do. If you're not measuring it, how do you manage it? How do you manage it? How do you prove you did it? So I think that was the biggest takeaway for me yesterday. Just such a great statement. So I think we've seen different work happen when I was within the CFA on how we do that as a group. And I'm not in that capacity anymore, but I would suggest that CFA continues to do that work. But we definitely need to do it.
That's awesome. That's great. With that, I think we'll let you off the hook, although I know you'll stick around, and I'm sure you've got lots more to say. But I just want to personally thank you for going through this journey with me and having this conversation and just bringing all of this down to certainly my level, our level, and creating a better understanding of how we can help you advocate for agriculture and have a stronger voice for agriculture. And I want to thank you for everything that you do, because you're incredible.
Thank you. That's very beautiful of you to say. Thank you. I want to say two things for clarity. One is the imposter syndrome is very, very real. And I want to say that because when I said that to them recently, they said, I'm just so happy to hear you say that. And I thought, me? I'm from North Tryon, Prince Edward Island. So everybody feels it, I think, regardless of where you are. And it's important to know that. So push yourself. Go out there. Do it. Do it. And the other is really look at the Senate as a vehicle. We need to, we're coming into a different time politically. We have this really unique time at the Senate. So please look at the Senate as a vehicle. Reach out to my office. Mahek, my Director of Parliamentary Affairs, is here. She's a genius and passionate and learning agriculture, so she's a sponge. So dump it all in her brain. And please, please do reach out to us if you see something that you want some help with. We're really there to help.